Welcome to Valley Politics. I'm Terry Christensen, your host for our show on politics and public policy in San Jose and Silicon Valley. We have a very special show for you today, including an exclusive first look at the findings of the just completed Silicon Valley Pulse survey. At our request, the survey included questions about leaders and issues in the Valley, and we'll hear what people had to say from the San Jose State University professors who ran the survey. We'll also have an update on what's going on in San Jose's Council District 7, that's South Central San Jose, with Councilmember Tam Nguyen. Then, for our Where Are They Now feature, we'll have the second part of our visit with Ron Gonzales, who was mayor of San Jose from 1999 to 2007. And I think you'll be surprised by some of what he has to say. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone. Today we open our show with a video we filmed at the San Jose State Survey and Policy Research Institute with Professor Mary Curran-Percival. Then here in our studio, Professor Melinda Jackson will reveal the results of the poll. Now let's take a look behind the scenes at SPREE.
SPREE is the Survey and Policy Research Institute at San Jose State. And we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization. We provide survey research for students and faculty here at San Jose State. The student interviewers are talking to a random sample of Silicon Valley residents. We interview Silicon Valley residents age 18 and older, English and Spanish speaking. We talk to people on landlines and cell phones. We're trying to generalize to the larger population of Silicon Valley residents. The people doing this survey, they are students enrolled in political science public opinion classes. They're enrolled in political science methods classes, research methods classes, and then we have some students who are in state politics classes, a local politics class, and then we also have some students in sociology statistics classes, but they're all undergraduate and graduate students at San Jose State. This survey takes 2 weeks to actually field, but we have students here who actually in a public opinion class in political science, they constructed the survey. So they actually created the questions and they constructed the entire questionnaire, and it took pretty much the course of the class to construct the whole survey. So while the fielding only takes about 2 weeks, putting together the survey and then programming the survey takes probably the course of 6 weeks, and then we'll do the data analysis over the course of another week. But then the students in the public opinion class, they're going to actually use the data for their own projects, so that's going to take another probably 2 weeks, and then they're going to present projects using that data. So really, the whole project is going to take over the course of the entire semester. So it's really been a hands-on, experiential learning project for them.
From San Jose State University.
So the process, we first begin by signing in because Dr. Curran-Percival likes to keep track of our hours, and then we come to our assigned and designated station. And what we do first, we pick up the headset, we put it on, and we log in using our credentials and information. And from there, we begin calling. And we begin calling by using a random digit dial. And as soon as we get someone on the line, that's when we begin our survey. And it's already a predetermined survey in which our class, my class, Dr. Curran-Percival's class, compiled. And then we go through that survey, and hopefully if we complete the survey, we will thank them and wish them the best, and we will end the survey and the data will be collected.
It's a new experience because you're cold calling people. So you're catching them at different times of the day. So it's kind of testing your social skills, which I thought I was really good at until I started the survey, and I realized I had to kind of change the way I talk to people. That includes like lowering my tone, speaking slower, and kind of understanding that people are getting off work. And you know when you get off work, you're not really trying to do a survey, so you kind of have to get them to do it through your kind of your voice tone and through kind of your enthusiasm.
I actually enjoy it. I think a lot of people kind of hate it because you have to talk to people, but I work at a place where I talk to people, so I'm really used to it. It's nice to get a different variety of people and what their what their experience is with politics, because I've taken a lot of local politics classes, and you read about it, but you don't really experience it. And it's really true how bad or how low people don't know what they know, or like how little they know.
You know, my learning experience, I've had many. I've learned a lot, but probably the biggest takeaway that I've had is people in this valley and people in this region just want their voices heard. They want their opinions heard. When I first came in here, I thought that I was going to be annoying people, but that's not the case at all. In fact, no one's been annoyed. Everyone who I've contacted has been enthusiastic about telling me their opinion, and we have learned a lot about our valley's opinion. And again, the biggest takeaway, I think, is people just want their voices heard and their opinions to be noted. And hopefully we are doing that here, and I'm actually very confident that we are doing that here.
Now Melinda Jackson is with us to report on the findings of the poll. Melinda, welcome, and thank you very much for including some of our questions in the survey.
Absolutely.
Let's start by talking a little bit about the sample, because sample size is really important to the validity of the poll. So how did that come out?
Well, we ended up with a sample of just over 337 respondents, and this gives us a margin of error of plus or minus 5.3 percentage points. So this is on the smaller side as polls go. However, it is enough to give us a valid representation of the Valley population. The important thing with polls is that it's a random sample, and this was a random sample, which means we can generalize from our results to the whole population.
Well, you say a 5% margin of error, so that's plus or minus on the accuracy of the poll, validity of the poll.
That's right.
What were some of the challenges of getting up to that number of interviews?
Well, it's getting harder and harder to get people to participate in telephone polls. We did include both landline phones and cell phones in our survey, which is really important to do these days, since so many people are cell phone only. They have no landline anymore. But so many people screen their calls, right? Everyone has caller ID, and so it's really hard just to get people to pick up the phone. Now, once they do, we actually, have a pretty good track record of getting them to agree to participate, especially since we're calling from San Jose State University, and here in the Valley, that really helps us.
Yeah, one of the students in the video said that people actually, if you connected to a real person, people were actually fairly eager to talk and share their opinions, so that's a good thing. And you think it helps that the calls are coming from San Jose State students? Absolutely,
and we often have people who start telling our students about their stories and their connections to the university. Oh, my daughter goes there, or I'm a graduate of San Jose State, so that good reputation of the university in the Valley definitely helps us.
I know when I was there, some of the calls were going really long because the respondents were telling their stories to the students, so they really were eager to talk. Well, let's get to the results of the survey. Let's start with the question about the most admired leader in the region. What did the survey show us?
Well, the person who had the most responses, was named most often, was Jerry Brown, and followed by Sam Liccardo. So
the governor and the mayor.
The governor and the mayor.
Kind of the obvious ones.
Yeah, well, the third most frequently named leader was Jackie Speer. So that was a little surprising that she came out ahead of people like Dianne Feinstein or Barbara Boxer, for example, or Gavin Newsom, for that matter.
And she's a congresswoman who represents the San Mateo Mid-Peninsula area, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Actually, what surprised me about this question in the poll is that 54% of the respondents didn't name anybody. Do you think that's because they're not paying attention, or they really don't admire any public leader? What's going on there?
Well, we did have a few people who said none of them, but that was rare. Most of the people who didn't have a response simply couldn't think of anyone. And so, yeah, a majority of respondents in the poll, when asked for a public leader they admired, just couldn't think of anyone at all, which is a little disappointing in terms of civic engagement, but not all that surprising since most people aren't political junkies like you and I.
Clearly that's the case given these results. Well, let's look at one of the other questions, really pretty interesting one, was asking the respondents about their level of confidence in various institutions and organizations in the Valley. Which ones did well, or how did they do overall? Give us a little idea of the level of confidence in these institutions and organizations.
Well, we asked people to rate how much confidence they had in different local institutions on a 4-point scale. 1 was very little confidence, and 4 was a great deal. And overall, Most institutions were somewhere between a 2 and a 3 on average.
And what's that mean, between 2 and 3?
It's between some and quite a bit
between
of
some
confidence.
confidence and quite a bit of confidence?
Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
That's pretty good, yes. It was in the middle of that scale. The institution that had the highest confidence ratings was the police, and followed by public schools. Next, we had city government, VTA, and the Mercury News, all kind of tied in a second tier. And then finally, we had the business and labor organizations kind of in a third tier of confidence. So I think that with this particular question, familiarity plays a big role. So the police and schools, almost everyone had an opinion about those institutions, whereas for some of the other groups, like the business groups, 50 to 60% of respondents said, I don't know, I can't say, I don't know enough, I'm not familiar with those institutions.
And the business groups we asked about were the Chamber of Commerce and the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, which for political junkies at least are pretty high profile organizations, but for the general public not so much.
Yeah.
Labor organizations were better known though, and more people had an opinion about labor, right?
Yes, so 62% of respondents did not have an opinion about the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and 56% did not have an opinion about the Chamber of Commerce. So both of those, over half, did not have anything to say. Only 30% did not have an opinion about organized labor. The results on labor were a little bit interesting. They were a little more polarized. You had more people giving them positive ratings, but also more people giving them negative ratings, saying they had very little confidence. So with labor, you kind of had people on both ends a little bit more, whereas the business groups, a lot of people were just not familiar with them.
Were you surprised that the level of confidence in police was so high, given the national controversies we've seen about police practices, and also the decline in police presence in San Jose?
Yes. Well, 41% of respondents said they had either quite a bit or a great deal of confidence in the police. So it's less than half. But people tend to have more positive feelings about their local institutions than they do about the national institutions. So it's not that surprising to me that, if we asked about police nationally or the law enforcement system in the country as a whole, we might see some different results. But when you're asking about your local police, I think most people, despite the controversies, still have a little bit more positive feeling toward the men and women who are protecting them on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you. The third question had to do with the most important problem facing the Silicon Valley region today. So what were the results for that question?
Well, the top three, probably not surprising.
Top three problems.
Top three problems that were named. It was an open-ended question, so then we went through and we looked at the answers and picked out the top three. Number one, cost of living and affordable housing. Number two was the drought, and number three was jobs and employment. And it's a little related to cost of living because a lot of people mention things about income inequality, the lack of good-paying jobs, things of that nature.
Was there anything in the poll that surprised you? These are the issues you kind of thought would come up?
Yeah, another one that was related to cost of living was income inequality. That kind of came in, if we had it as a separate category, that would have been sort of the fourth most named issue. So there was a lot of attention on, just how difficult it is for many people in this valley to make ends meet and to have a comfortable life. And quite a few mentions of the growing economic disparity and inequality. That is very salient. It's an issue that's been on the national agenda, but we certainly see it every day here in Silicon Valley.
But the number one issue overall was cost of living, especially relating to housing.
Yes.
And again, not a very big surprise.
Not a very big surprise. The one surprising thing, I think, was with the number of people who just didn't have opinions about these issues. I guess it shouldn't be surprising to me as a political scientist who studies these issues, but it is always disappointing. I think a good reminder, though, that we do have an issue with civic engagement in this country, and that many people are not really paying attention and holding their elected officials accountable.
Very good point, and something maybe we'll have another show focus on. Meanwhile, I really want to thank you and your colleague Mary and your students at San Jose State for including these questions in the poll and being with us today. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Now let's hear how some residents answered the survey questions we just talked about. Then we'll get the latest news on District 7 with Councilmember Tam Nguyen. Here we go.
Hi, this is Michaela Davis with Valley Politics, and today we have two questions in reference to the survey. First question, which public leader do you most admire and why?
It would probably be Barbara Boxer, considering that, she's for us Californians and she supports especially the women causes. That's my main concern.
The public official that I most admire is probably Gonzales, because even though he worked for the city of San Jose in the past, and he did so many things for the city, you could still see the effects of his leadership.
It would be Jerry Brown, because he has brought this economy from being so much in debt to having our economy being surplus, and he has done a very good job being at that position.
Second question, what do you think is the biggest issue that the Silicon Valley faces today?
I would say what Silicon Valley faces right now is probably gang activity, violence against not only the police department but citizens in general.
The things that Silicon Valley faces today is probably housing, affordable housing, wages. People can't afford to actually live in the city. Therefore, most people have to travel out of the city for cheaper housing. That's a big issue.
This is Michaela Davis for Valley Politics. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Councilmember Tam Nguyen, and this is an update on District 7. We had the ribbon cutting for the brand new Roberto Ballamino Park off of Almaden on March 7. This new park is in a neighborhood that is in need of parks and recreation facilities, and we got a great one. Ballamino Park features a basketball court, open space for playing ball, several playing structures for the children, and even a nice covered area for picnics. We had a great time at the ribbon cutting, and I'm thankful for park staff for moving this project along and for our Ohlone friends who were able to give us historical background and bless us this grand opening. On March 19, I had my first community town hall meeting as a council member. Over 60 residents came out in attendance and were able to ask myself, our police lieutenant, and representatives from city staff questions ranging from road repair, homelessness, littering and graffiti, and a host of other issues. It was also an opportunity to highlight some of the great things our city has accomplished in District 7 and gain insightful feedback on what the priorities and concerns of District 7 residents are. We have also participated in several community cleanup events that show how members of our community can work together to keep our neighborhoods safe and clean. Please feel free to contact me at 408-535-4907, or you can always email me at district7@sanjoseca.gov. And I thank you for your time.
Now it's time for Where Are They Now? Today we present the second part of our exclusive interview with Gonzales, who was a county supervisor from 1989 to 96 and then mayor of San Jose from 1999 to 2007. Let's hear what he had to say about his last days in office. Shifting gears a little bit, what was your biggest disappointment as mayor?
I think the biggest disappointment was the last 2 years of my term, ending my 24 years in public life in turmoil, fighting with members of the city council who were running for other offices, in some cases 3 of them running to succeed me as mayor, and the tarnish that left on my record, my family name, the expense it left on my family expenses and resources, which I'm still paying for. Certainly that was a disappointment. And And even with that, it doesn't overshadow the many years of public service and enjoyment that I had in serving the public, and specifically, it doesn't overshadow being the mayor of San Jose, which I consider still the greatest big city in America. I think we left San Jose as the safest big city in America, with better neighborhood services than ever before, with a better understanding by the people of San Jose what City Hall was capable of. We kind of took away the image that, you know, the bureaucracy can't do anything correct. I think we changed that image, and hopefully that can, you know, be restored again.
Those last 2 years, and when you left office under a cloud, you were censured by the city council. There was an indictment for bribery, which a judge later threw out entirely. And that was over the negotiations for the contract for garbage collection. Do you think you were just wrongfully accused, or in retrospect, do you think you erred in some way?
Well, I do think I was wrongfully accused, and more importantly, so did the judge. You know, when 2 years of actions by an overzealous deputy district attorney, who, in my opinion, misused the civil grand jury in my case, and came up with this bogus bribery charge that just could not stand up to the discerning eye of a well-qualified and experienced judge. Once it finally got to that level, when that judge looked at it and said, this should have never been filed, you know, it certainly was discouraging to have to go through that, to be the subject of kind of a political hanging, so to speak, public hanging by your colleagues on the city council. I recognize what was going on. You know, as I said before, we had 5 members of a 10-member council running for public office. 3 of them opposing each other to succeed me, 2 others opposing each other to be a county supervisor. So when you're absent issues, then you all kind of gang up on something. And I think that over a longer period of time, when people review the public record, they'll see that this should have never happened, and it was very unfortunate that it did, and certainly very discouraging way to leave public office. But as I said before, for me personally, it doesn't tarnish the 24 years service that I gave to you know, a number of communities in this region.
Some people blame past mayors and councils for the city's current pension and budget problems. Did you have any clue that these kinds of problems were coming when you were mayor?
Well, if I knew that the city was going to have the budgetary issues that it's had for much of the last 8 years, I would have been working the stock market, because I would have then been able to predict where the economy is going. Because most, if not all, of the budget worries that the city has, and any government organization had during the Great Recession, was caused by the Great Recession. You know, you have a drop in sales tax, you have a drop in property taxes, all these types of things are really out of your control as a mayor. So you have to respond quickly as much as you possibly can. In terms of the pension issue, I think it's fair to say that when I became mayor, in the surveys that the city staff brought to us, the salary surveys, where you know, you do this in the private sector, you kind of compare your organization's salaries compared to the competition. The same thing happens in the public sector. And those surveys showed that the salaries and benefits we were paying police and fire were far below where they needed to be. We weren't even among the leaders where I think we should be in order to attract, train, and keep really good people in your police and fire department. So we had to do what the market was dictating at that point. So we did that. The flip side of that now is changes have been made, and we've seen hundreds of police officers, mostly very experienced police officers, leaving the department, going to work for other cities. The same happens with fire, and in many respects with city workers also, the regular city workers at City Hall. And I think it's been a tremendous brain drain from the city, and I think that ultimately we're going to have to pay for that.
Okay. You made history as the first Latino mayor of San Jose since statehood in the 19th century.
That was a long campaign, 150 years.
It took a long time. I'm not sure how much progress we've made, though. Today, out of 11 members of the council, including the mayor, there are 3 Latinos. Out of 5 members of the county board, there's 1 Latino. But Latinos are a third of the population of the city of San Jose. Why do you think more Latinos aren't getting elected? And maybe your work with foundation training for Latinos is building the field?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think, unfortunately, fewer and fewer people in general are being attracted to elective office for a variety of reasons. I think that the public media display of and exposure that elected officials go through now is so much higher than when I first started serving the public back in 1979. So these are the kinds of things people are more aware of now. So it's like, okay, do I really want this job? Even though I love serving the public, maybe I'll serve on the library commission or something less exposure oriented. So I think in general people are very careful about venturing into elective office. Now, having said that, I think the challenge we have in a place like San Jose, where you have district elections, is that even though San Jose is about a third Hispanic, a good portion of our community lives in a couple council districts, right? So I think as our foundation hopefully continues its work to get more of our children to graduate from college, to get more of those graduates to work in high tech and to raise their incomes, to allow them the opportunity to buy a home in Willow Glen or the Rose Garden or Almaden Valley, then you begin to disperse that voting population. And then of course, there's study after study, and you know this as a political scientist, that shows that voter participation, civic engagement skyrockets when someone buys a home because they now have an investment in the community. So I think it's a long range issue, but I want to also mention that when I was in the city council, we had 3 Hispanics, and there was 1 Hispanic on the board of supervisors. It dipped a little bit for about a year, now we're back to where we were. So hopefully we don't see that dip again, and we can continue to move forward. But having said that, obviously we want to see more representation from all the other ethnic communities of San Jose, because we are one of those cities that is a majority community. And I truly believe that those communities, like any community, needs to feel that they have the opportunity to be engaged in their government.
And right now, we probably have San Jose's most diverse council ever.
Yeah, with the exception of women.
One last question. A lot of people probably don't know that, like me, you're a political film buff. So tell us, what's your favorite political movie?
Oh, wow, that's a long list, but actually we've talked about this. It's The Candidate. Absolutely.
Well, we share that.
And I think because when you look at that movie, the time era that was made, I think it was very insightful, because I've seen people like The Candidate. And those are people who get into politics because of the glare of the lights and the stardom, that type of thing. And they're attracted to that rather than sitting down with themselves and saying, okay, what's in here? Why do I want to do this? Because when you're in elective office, you're going to have issues coming at you from all different directions, and you're not going to be able to book up on all of them. So you're going to have to come back to what are your instincts. Why are you doing this job that pays so little and demands so much? And I think that what Robert Redford depicted in that movie was that type of candidate, who the glare was there. He was propped up. He was given the answers to the questions. He gave the answers that were given to him. And at the end of the movie, the closing line was, once he gets elected, he turns to his campaign manager as his campaign manager is leaving his hotel room, and he asks the campaign manager what? He says, "What do we do now?"
Right.
That's the question you ask at the beginning of the campaign if you're really into this for all the right reasons.
Great choice of film. 1976 it was, and some of it was filmed in San Jose.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, some of it was at East Ridge before the shopping center actually opened.
Oh, wow.
Jane Decker's in. Well, we can talk about that. We can talk about that some other time. But
Absolutely.
Thanks again for your time today. Great insights. We really appreciate
Thank you for inviting
having
me
you on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Next month, we'll feature former San Jose Mayor Norm Mineta on Where Are They Now? Meanwhile, please visit our website at creatvsj.org or email your comments to us at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, where you can post your comments and suggest guests or topics for us. And remember, like all our guests, you can make a difference in your community just by stepping forward and getting involved. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics today. See you next time.
Eli Thomas Menswear is a proud sponsor of Valley Politics, Italian contemporary clothing for today's executive lifestyle. Eli Thomas Menswear is located at 350 South Winchester Boulevard, next to Santana Row.